Esperanza, thank you so much for joining us here
pleasure.
at RiskMinds. How would you say that enterprise risk management differs from traditional risk management?
Well, I would say it's nothing significantly different. I think what it has added on top of the traditional risk management is a more holistic and a strategic view to provide tools that look across the different things in the organization in order to provide the board with analysis that help them to prioritize and to see where do they need to allocate resources. Another important aspect that I think enterprise risk management has brought is, to incorporate risk management into the whole set of population of the company. For example, something that is well observed or mentioned, we are all risk management one way or another, because when you get up in the morning, and weather is the kind of most commonly used example, you get out of the window and say, it's snowing. Should I cycle today? Should I take the train? And you start to do a risk assessment. I live in London. Trains don't work when there are, tough weather conditions. So I think that concept of enterprise risk management is that every employee within the firm is a risk manager within their activities. And I think that is an important concept that enterprise risk management has brought.
So it's kind of innate and should be seen as supplementary.
Correct. I think traditional risk management focus, it was more silo on risk types within businesses. Enterprise risk management has brought it to the boardroom, where analysis on the risk combine, where are correlations, where are dependencies between them, and rather than focusing only on the loss, it also brings on focuses on the opportunity. So it's a more holistic approach, I would say.
Moving away from that in itself, looking at regulation, how do you think, what do you think are the main regulatory pressure points for firms, on the buy side at the moment, and how can enterprise risk management help with that?
Well, I heard someone saying that regulations are coming like a tsunami, and I couldn't agree more. I think the biggest challenge that we are facing is how to be able to absorb all that amount of regulation that is coming, interpret it in a way on how it affects each of the organizations, and go a little bit further, and that is what enterprise risk management can help with, and is see what are the opportunities that those regulations are bringing to the organization in terms of how do we need to change our business model. So as I mentioned earlier on, enterprise risk management, it brings a more strategic approach for the board in terms of prioritization. So I would say the biggest regulatory pressures are costs, and particularly for investment firms like DWS, in which the new set of regulations have margin compressions in terms of fees. It's kind of hitting some of the funds. So the additional cost of regulation, I would say, is the one of the most important point pressures.
So regulation has changed and evolved over the 10 years since the financial crash. You talked there about all of us being risk managers within ourselves and within a firm. But how would you see the CRO's role has changed in that 10 years?
Well, I would say there had been significant changes. I think the first one is that capital and liquidity had been elevated. The capital requirements have increased significantly. So we needed to start looking, or the pressure to look at return on capital is higher, and also how to allocate capital between different businesses and opportunities to see what would be the opportunity cost. Another important change that I have observed, and is very crucial for investment firms, is the incorporation of operational risks and regulatory risks. Something that it was contemplated before, but it has added a new dimension, particularly on how to combine it with other different risk types and what are the mitigation techniques that we do have. Another layer in which I have seen a lot of change is in risk conduct and how to coming back to the point that I was making earlier on, that now risk is something that is embedded in the organization and applies to every employee, is that conversation about risk conduct and risk culture and conduct has been elevated to the boardroom. There is more talk about, more information about risk management, more knowledge about risk management, and also it has been more localized because, particularly for organizations like us that are across different locations, you need to look at the risk in each of the different entities and different regulations.
You talk there about culture, and I know the regulators have been very keen to sort of point out and reiterate the point that that sort of conduct risk culture in companies has to be trickled down from the top. Is that something you agree with?
Totally. I think it's very important to also apply not only culture but diversity when you analyze the different risks. You need to have different point of views, different angles to analyze the information, and particularly to challenge. I think also one of the points of focus that we see from the regulators is that there needs to be challenge in the boardroom, and hence is one of the reasons why also they are pushing for the incorporation of more independent directors within the board.
So cognitive diversity is
correct,
key.
Indeed. And it's not only, because diversity is a point that is very kind of close to my heart. It should not be diversity of gender, it should be diversity of thought, and definitely is fundamental to exercise proper risk management.
So with all of that under consideration, what do you think will be keeping CROs awake at night in 2019, and what will be their key concerns and challenges?
Well, we have been listening to a lot of them this past day. Definitely cybersecurity. We are having, and we are all aware of the different attacks. We saw it in the UK with WannaCry, recently with Marriott. So I think cybersecurity, and I would highlight several aspects, is not only the prevention, but also the fact that it's a human risk, because firms, we need to identify who are our high-risk individuals in terms of containing sensitive information that can be targeted. And also another, obviously the cost, but also what is the consequences rather of an attack, rather than preventing an attack. That is where we are all focusing in. Go a little bit beyond and see what will we do in case that there is an attack. So the combination of the IT teams with the risk management tool, and see, generate a little bit of a playbook. I think another area that is keeping me awake, let's say, is all the uncertainty that is geopolitical uncertainty, how to model those risks, how to incorporate them in terms of our scenario generation. Another area I would say as well is ESG, ESG risks, and how incorporated into the ESG products that we are offering is a very, we are seeing a lot of demand from clients in terms of provide ESG compliant products. The risk management of those risks is quite crucial.
So an awful lot for CROs to think about, and RiskMinds is a good opportunity to meet with colleagues and perhaps share ideas and insights.
Oh, definitely. It has been a great opportunity to share best practice between different institutions. It has also great to share different point of views, and also to learn. I've seen a lot of what I said, food for thought, to get a new ideas and how we can share it with my colleagues and how to look forward to implement them within the organization.
Esperanza, thank you so much for joining us. It's been great to talk to you.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.